Good evening, and welcome to this evening session of Guru Anugraham Interactive Season 3, Session 4. Our community who have been with us since the beginning are aware that we started out in this unique niche of lectures in English, which enabled us to increase the conversation about the Guru's teaching, even within our own family, where, for example, 3 members out of 4 do not have Malayalam as our first language. So the amount of access uh, to the learnings, the insights, and an introduction into the teachings has been invaluable in terms of these Guru Anugraham lecture series. We started out with weekly sessions in the first season. In the second season, we moved on to monthly sessions. And in this third season, we are having interactive conversations. They are led by an esteemed member of our community, Dr. P.K. Sabu, who is a renowned erudite scholar and author on Sri Narayan Guru's teaching and philosophy. This evening, our guest in conversation is Father Dr. Sebastian Painadat. I would like to introduce him here in a few words. Born in Kerala in 1942, he is a Jesuit priest in the Catholic Church. He did his doctorate in religious studies in Germany. At present, he is the founder director of Samiksha, the Center for Indian Spirituality at Kaladi. He's engaged in conducting meditation sessions and offering interreligious seminars in India, Europe, and other East Asian countries. He has authored 32 books in Malayalam, English, and German, and has published over 200 articles in national and international journals. Welcome, Father. Welcome, Dr. P.K. Sabu, as always. I will now hand over to Dilip ji to take our evening forward.
Thank you, Ms. Ibna. Om Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Good evening to all of you. This is our third season and fourth lecture in this season. And first 2 seasons, we had 10 lectures each. This is the 24th lecture we are doing it. The theme of this particular season is to know and let known. And this theme is very much related to the Conference of All Religions conducted by Sri Narayana Guru in Aluva Advaita Ashram in 1924. So we have taken that theme, and today we have a very, very apt person to talk about that theme, Reverend Father Dr. Sebastian Painadat. He is the founder director of Samiksha. They initiate a lot of interreligious dialogues. So just at the beginning, I'll read out a small line from the famous welcome speech made by Swami Satyavrata at the All Religious Conference in Aluva in 1924. It says, I quote, "We see here the Advaita Ashram of Narayana Guru on this river bank, which has been sanctified by the birth of Sri Shankaracharya, who was a teacher of Advaita. Swami Vivekananda, whose fame is universal, has said that the religions of Indians would be complete only if the heart of Buddha and intellect of Sri Shankaracharya came together. But Guru Narayana is of the firm conviction that only if the knowledge of the Hindus, the mercy of Buddha, the love of Christ, and the brotherhood of the Prophet Muhammad come together, would a religion of mankind, which would help in gaining world peace, be complete." So, unquote. So here we have Dr. Painadat. Father will be speaking about the distinction between spirituality and religiosity, spirituality and the firm belief in the religions. Father also will be talking to us about how the spiritual experience evolves into a religion. So these are the brief areas Father will be touching upon. Today, as usual, we have Dr. P.K. Sabu to initiate this dialogue. In the beginning, Dr. Sebastian Painadat will be speaking about his theme. Then Dr. Sabu will be asking the questions.
Okay. Good evening. Namaste. So I am very happy to converse with such a noble soul who dedicated his life for such a noble cause for Jesus. He belongs to the Society of Jesus. So in the welcome speech, Dilip sir said that in the welcome speech of All Religion Conference, it was mentioned that the venue of that conference was very holy with the presence of the birth of Adi Shankara. It was again blessed by Advaita Asrama. And now I think that is again blessed by the Savisha Ashram of Reverend Father Sebastian Painadat. So all these are located in Alua in that particular locality. So it's again going on blessing. That particular area has some that type of some divinity. So when we have Father with us, naturally our memories will be connected to such great souls of yesteryears who visited Narayana Guru and who dedicated their lives to Jesus. So one such great soul was C.F. Andrews. C.F. Andrews was an Anglican priest. He was a Christian missionary. He was very close to Gandhiji and Rabindranath Tagore. He was also associated with the Indian movement of Indian freedom movement. He was also associated with that. It was known as Dinabandhu C.F. Andrews. So he was so close to Mahatma Gandhi. So in between them, there is such a freedom to the extent that C.F. Andrews was one of the few dignitaries who had the freedom to address Gandhiji by his first name, Mohan. He used to call him Mohan. Such freedom was there. Gandhiji also had the freedom to the extent that he gave a nickname to C.F. Andrews. The short form of C.F. Andrews is CFA. So Gandhiji gave a nickname, Christ's faithful apostle. That again is CFA, Christ's faithful apostle. So today we have another CFA. We can call Father Painadat also a CFA, Christ's faithful apostle. Thank you, Father. And C.F. Andrews visited Narayana Guru along with Rabindranath Tagore. After visiting Tagore, he wrote a letter to Romain Rolland, one of his friends. Romain Rolland was a French writer, was a recipient of Nobel Prize. So in the wiki page of C.F. Andrews, one line of that letter is available. It's not on the wiki page of Sri Narayana Guru, it is on the wiki page of C.F. Andrews. There is one sentence of that letter. He wrote to Romain Rolland, I have seen our Christ walking on the shores of Arabian Sea in the attire of a Hindu sannyasi. That was his briefing about Narayana Guru. Of course, Narayana Guru himself clarified that he did not belong to any particular religion, but outwardly, by his dress, it was that of a Hindu sannyasi. So C.F. Andrews identified Narayana Guru as he saw Christ in Narayana Guru. So to see that type of spirituality in a different tradition, there should be, that Father is going to talk about the difference between religiosity and spirituality. So C.F. Andrews must be basically a spiritual person. Only a spiritual person can see the spirituality in all other traditions. So the dominant factor in C.F. Andrews must be spirituality. Technically, he belonged to a particular tradition, religious tradition, but that is the outward. Maybe the religion was a means to attain the spirituality, but basically he was a spiritual person. So had he been fundamentally a religious person, it would not have been possible to see Christ in another person, in another tradition. So I think that is the dominant difference between how we see others. When we are spiritual persons, spiritual individuals, we can incorporate all religions, irrespective of the traditions. But when we are fundamentally religious, that may not be possible. So this is, I spoke these words only as a background to invite Father to talk on the same topic, the difference between religiosity and spirituality. So apart from the usual way of conversations, instead of going directly to the conversation, Father will present his topic on the difference between spirituality and religiosity. But after the presentation, we can move on to the usual way of conversation. So with due respect, I invite Reverend Father Sebastian Painada to make his presentation. Thank you, Father.
Thank you, Dr. Sabu. Shall we remain just a moment in silence before we begin? Dear friends, thank you for this invitation to share my reflections on the difference between religion and spirituality. I think the distinction between religion and spirituality is something very important even to understand the concern of Narayana Guru and of all religious founders, of all sages. I would like to locate the difference within ourselves. When we look at the way our consciousness sinks from the body level to a deeper realms, we will be able to understand the distinction between religion and spirituality. Kindly switch on that diagram 1. You know, I have developed this diagram in the light of what the Bhagavad Gita said, Manasastu para buddhi. I think that's a very important epistemological principle to understand the Indian spiritual classics. Manasastu para buddhi. Beyond the mind is the buddhi. So we have at the first level the body awareness. We all know what it means. Then below that we have the mind, at the center of which the I consciousness develops. In fact, I is a creation of the mind. If we go down, we come to the realm of the psyche. First, the personal psyche, and deep down, the collective unconscious, which is our common patrimony, we can say. And below that, or beyond that, there is an intuitive faculty within us. And that's what the Kathopanishad and the Bhagavad Gita is referring to. Buddhi is beyond the mind. Mind is extrovert. Buddhi is introspective. Mind is bound up with the senses. Buddhi explores the depth of reality. Mind examines the diversity of things. Buddhi explores the unity of reality. Mind pursues the logic of reality. Buddhi pursues the mystic of reality. So Buddhi is the intuitive faculty within us. And through the Buddhi, we go to the deeper realm. In all religions, in all religious scriptures, this sacred realm within us is called the heart. It's not the anatomical heart, it is not the seat of emotions, but the heart means the divine space within us. And it is within the heart that we have the experience of the divine presence. Within the heart, we experience the divine spirit, Param Atma, and the human spirit, Jivatma. Ultimately, Jivatma and Paramatma are one. However, at the mind level up there, we need images, names, and forms of the divine. While, because the mind objectifies everything, but the Buddhi, the intuitive faculty within us, it intuits the depth of reality, the deeper dimensions of the oneness between the human and the divine. So we could perhaps say spirituality evolves within the heart. Religion evolves in the mind. Spirituality is the core of religion. Religion is a form of spirituality. Spirituality is the power. Religion is the rupa. In spirituality, we make a transpersonal experience of the divine. In religion, we make an interpersonal relationship with the divine. That means the divine presence becomes a thou at the mind level, at the religion level. Spirituality is essentially one. Religion is manifold. This distinction between religion and which is bound with the mind, and spirituality which is experienced deep within the heart. I think this distinction is extremely important to understand the mystical traditions of all religions. Now the question comes, how does a spirituality evolve into religion? Could we have the Second slide. Okay. Spirituality evolves to religion through the symbols. Basically, there are 4 symbols found in all religions. They refer to creed, cult, code, and community. Creed means what you have to believe. Cult means how to worship. Code refers to the ethical norms, and community speaks of the many structures of community organization. So these 4 C's, we can say. These are the 4 pillars of religion. Perhaps during the discussion, we could speak more on that, what happens at the religion level, so on. We can speak of that. Do we need a religion? Yes. It is something like asking the question, do we need a language at all? Is it not enough to have thoughts? No. We need a language. With all its limitations, we need a language to express our desires, our thoughts, our emotions. Spirituality is the inherent experience. Religion is the expression of that with all its ambivalences. There is no perfect religion at all. At the religion level, we see a tremendous diversity. But when we go to the spirituality level, there is a dynamic unity which we can find there. Actually, all human persons are all bound experiencing the one spirituality, because the one divine spirit, the one divine Atman is working in the hearts of all human persons. The one divine reality working in the one humanity. But just as we have so many languages, we do have also many religions. Religions are many because the symbols are many, and symbols are often very much culturally conditioned symbols. Referring to the deep spirituality, Sri Narayana Guru wrote in Atmopadesha Shatakam. I always like this verse of Atmopadesha Shatakam. I just quote in Malayalam. Avan ivan ennariyunnadokkeyarthal avaniyil adimamayoratmarupam. Whether you call him or her with names and forms and all that, ultimately, at the spiritual level, we are all divine. We are all Atma Rupam. We are all the replica of the divine spirit. Then he says, but we live here at the mind level. Then what happens? What is the consequence of that? അവനവൻ ആത്മസുഖത്തിന് ആചരിക്കുന്നവ അപരന്നു സുഖത്തിനായി വരേണം. That is the religion. Whatever you do for yourself should be helpful, noble, auspicious for others. I think this verse brings our attention to the heart of a universal spirituality, that to the realization that we are all one. Yet we speak different languages, we have different religions, but ultimately all religions give the message of compassion. And you know that Narayana Guru wrote very emphatically on compassion in Anugamba Deshakam and so many other scriptures. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Father. Thank you so much. Also making a few comments, maybe as a supplementary to what Father said or complementary to what Father said. Then we move to the conversation. The Father was speaking about the 4 different facets of religions like cult, creed, court, community, etc. I think one reason for the differences in all these factors are the temporal and spatial conditions under which each religion developed. Most of the scriptures, they were all developed in a particular geographic locality at a time when the communication methodologies and transportation facilities were not developed. So they all developed in localized regions, and people thought that that is the right way. So even though the essence of all religions were same, the way in which it was presented, the style of presentation, the metaphors used, the language in which it was presented, and also the immediate applications. So I think the essence of all religions are something like electricity. At one point, we can use it for lighting bulbs. At another station, we can use it for the kitchen, for function in the kitchen equipments, or we can use it for function in the computer. So it depends on for what purpose we are using. So only because the electricity was used for lighting bulb at a particular time, it does not mean that that is the only application. That's why Narayana Guru once said that during the time of Buddha, probably the hurting was at the peak. So Buddha gave emphasis for non-hurting, ahimsa, in his teachings. And during the time of Prophet Muhammad in Arabia, probably brotherhood was at disorder. So he gave emphasis to the brotherhood factor. So these are all the application side. But when we see the great souls who lived in modern times, Father referred about Narayana Guru, so well known about the oneness concept of Narayana Guru. It is not only Narayana Guru, even in Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, we can see this message of unity of religions in Ramakrishna's teachings. Baha'u'llah, the founder of Baha'i faith, he also spoke about the same message. So when we come to the modern masters or prophets or gurus, they all spoke in almost uniformly, but because they had the opportunity to see the essence of all religions and the methodology through which they all evolved, the geographical limitations, they all spoke in the same language. And since we are mainly concerned with Narayana Guru, so after quoting a few lines from Narayana Guru's works, in continuation of what Father quoted, Avan even Atma Sugathina Ajarikinnava, Avaranda Sugathina Varayana, we will move to the conversation. In verse 50 of Narayana Smriti, specifically Guru, emphatically Guru says this search for oneness. The verse is that Mohammada Christavacha Jaina Bauta Stathedare Ekada Padanayaiva Prayatande Nirandaram. This is very specifically stated. Mohammada Christavacha Jaina Bauthas Tathedare Ekatapadanayaiva Prayatande Nirantaram. Exactly what Father said, but Guru put it in Sanskrit in a different language. Muslims, Christians, Jains, Buddhists, and all other religions, they're all seeking for oneness. This is a statement. And the philosophical basis of this statement is given in Atmopadesh Shatakam from verse 44 to 49. So that particular part of Atmopadesh Shatakam can even be called as Ekamato Upanishad. An Upanishad dealing with one religion, that particular section, 6 verses from 44 to 49. So I will just mention what Narayana Guru says in verses 48 and 49. It's almost the same thing what Father said, but in a different language. So Guru is taking examples from our day-to-day life. And through that examples, Guru developed his philosophy. So Father was speaking about the transpersonal and interpersonal relationship. So what is this transpersonal relationship? In verse 48, Guru used 2 terms, Tanu and Satta Tanu. Tanu is body. So we have a physical body. But if you are all confined to physical bodies, how is it that if a child is wounded, the mother gets pained? Not only the mother, those who are closely associated with the child will be pained. So if you are all limited to the physical body, that is not possible. So Guru identifies a body, a Tanu, and what can be called as an eidetic consciousness. So wherever we say that it is mine and it is mine, that transpersonal relationship is working. That eidetic consciousness is working. So once we consciously see that this is the process through which we are always saying that it is mine, it is mine, it is mine, whatever is mine. Not only limited to human beings, even we are so affectionate with our pet dogs. So how we can say that it is my dog? So that is the relationship. So that is how Guru exemplifies the philosophy of oneness, the transpersonal relationship in verse 48. And after establishing this, Guru moved to the verse 49, where his own definition of religion is given. Akhilerum Atmasugatinai Prayatnam Sagalomingu Sadavi Chedidanu. Jagadil Immadam Egam. That is a new definition of a new religion of modern era. Everyone at every time is trying for self-happiness. So that strive for self-happiness, there is no doubt. Not only human beings, even we can see an earthworm. When it is disturbed, it will somewhere wiggle and go back to the comfortable position. So everywhere, everyone is striving for happiness. So that is Narayana Guru's one religion, the seek for self-happiness. It's a modern version. It's not only the philosophical concept and statements, we also organize the All Religion Conference. A very interesting statement given in that, the welcome speech of that statement from which Dilip sir quoted at the beginning. So how the spirituality is dimmed by the superiority of religion. The example given is that sulfuric acid was invented by the scientists, but the traders and the capitalists, they sold it, manufactured at a large scale, they sold it, they started earning money. So if they are using sulfuric acid for earning money, it is not the fault of the scientists who discovered it, sulfuric acid. Similarly, in religions, that marketing is there. The prophets and gurus are not responsible for this type of outweighed differences of religion. It is the people who are selling or using it for different purposes. And at the end of the All Religion Conference, Guru made a suggestion that everyone should study all religions. And Guru also declared his proposal or his plan for making a Mata Maha Pathasala. That is his original plan, and it is known from very reliable sources that the present Samadhi Mandiram. It was actually designed as the Mata Maha Pathasala, a greater institution for learning all religions. Even there was a revolutionary concept that religion should be purely personal. the religion of father need not be the religion of the children. They can learn all religions, they can opt any religion. So these are some of the revolutionary concepts which Guru made 100 years ago in 1924. So these are all there in our background when we are dealing with religiosity and spirituality. So how these are all dealt with philosophically. There are also the practical guidelines to solve these issues. These are all there. So I think we can discuss about how these type of modern scriptures that can also be utilized for filling the gap between the religiosity and spirituality. So I think Father may, if you wish, can make some comments on what I said, and afterwards we can open it for discussion. Thank you.
In the Bhagavad Gita, very often the Lord speaks of ahamkara and mamakara, a sort of I and mine feeling. I think true spirituality would liberate us from that egoism, the greed, the kama. That's why Gita often speaks of nishkama bhava. So that is, I think, a very important element in spirituality. In fact, all religions speak of a liberation from egocentrism. A second point which Dr. Sabu mentioned, what I found very important, when religion loses its spiritual depth, when the mind is not connected with the heart, then there is the danger of ritualism, dogmatism, legalism, institutionalism, and all sorts of aberrations come up in religion. And then what happens is that three demonic forces infiltrate into the sacred landscape of religion. These three asura shaktis, the three demonic forces are political, economic, and religious. Politicians have only one goal: to create a vote bank. So they will manipulate definitely religious emotions. Commercial people have only one goal: make profit at any cost. They would also manipulate religion. And thirdly, religious fundamentalists, they also want to cling on to their power and position. They would also inject venom, poison into the minds of people. I think this is a threefold aberration happening in the sacred landscape of religions. Dr. Sabu referred to that, and I think I agree with that, and that's why it's important that we deepen our consciousness, deepen our spirituality, and there we discover that people of different religions, we are all spiritual co-pilgrims. Spiritual co-pilgrims. That's what all that I wanted to say.
I think I missed one point. So
Okay,
one of the great efforts of Nadaraja Guru was to find a common language, unified language. Father spoke about the differences in languages. So Nataraj Guru's the whole life was dedicated to finding a common language. How we can use a common language, a unified language. So what is referred in Bible as the Bibleization. I just mentioned that he developed a geometrical language, and his dream was that using that geometrical language, it is possible to avoid the conflicts that arise because of the difference in our spoken language. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sabu. Thank you, Reverend Father Painadat, Dr. Sabu, for that wonderful speeches. Before we open the Q&A forum, I would like to invite Dr. Jija Madhavan Harisingh to say a few words.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you very much, Father Sebastian Painadat. Really, really wonderful distinction, launching from Bhagavad Gita you had given us in a short while. A very small, crisp, succinct presentation, and those two graphics you had presented, it made it absolutely clear for everybody, even the unpad, I'm sure, could understand the difference or distinction between religiosity and spirituality. And beyond the mind is buddhi, and buddhi pursuing the mystic, and the mind, you said mind pursues the buddhi, mystic, I think.
Mind is extrovert.
Yeah.
And buddhi is introspective.
Introspective, yes. So it was really, really wonderfully explained. The sacred realm of the divine space within us, the heart. And what I was amazed was when you talk about Christ and Jesuit stream of religion. Do you say? I'm scared to label it. You think about very, very focused, ardent devotion to Christ, and the way the penance was being done by the Jesuit fathers. In fact, my most favorite poet when I was in college was Gerald Manley Hopkins, who was a Jesuit priest and wrote so beautifully, so powerfully about God. And I remember one poem, Winhover. But how you explained everything in the language that Hindus understand, who are mainly the people who are here, except a couple of people from Christianity, like Mr. Alexander. It was really, really wonderful. And what you said is so, I mean, when you said it, it sounded so simple. What we experience is Jivatma and Paramatma, how we experience Jivatma and Paramatma, the way you said it, we are all so far away from experiencing Paramatma and Jivatma. We are so far away. We never go, I guess, we are in the surface and we never go to our heart space generally. Religion or otherwise is what I feel. And the four symbols in all religions that you explained was also so very nice and very nicely put. The creed, the cult, the code, and the community structures. Dr. Sabu absorbed it as a learned person, but then for us who are listening to the difference between, I mean, we have been listening to the distinction between religiosity and spirituality from the plane, from the mind level, by our politicians and commercial people, by the people who know half truths and have half knowledge, and to listen to you was such a rich and rewarding experience. Really, really wonderful, that we could get you to talk to us. And it is really, you have given a small, simple solution to all our problems. The right tone, people, the world tone between religions and caste and creed. You have given us very simple, straightforward answer that we should all deepen our spirituality, and all differences will appear. That was really, really wonderful. Let me just take this opportunity to, and we are really, really thankful to you, and thankful for Dr. Sabu for exemplifying further what Father had said. I have only one very small question. Guru was, I'm sure both of you will be able to answer in your own way, Dr. Sabu as well as Father Sebastian. Guru was requested to start a religion like many of the others, like, say, for example, the Sikhism, Jainism, and things like that. But he said that there's no need for another religion, while he said that no caste, no religion, only one God, one caste, one religion, one God, and that they should not be jadi bhedam madadvesham edumillada sarvaram sodarattvena vazhunna madrakasthanamaanadu. But when he was asked to start a religion exemplifying and proving to the world that that kind of a society can be built up, he said, no need. Respect all religions, he said. We would like to get your views on that, and thank you at this time.
Thank you, Jija, for singing for your nice words. I am just wondering whether Jesus wanted to start a religion at all, whether Buddha wanted to start a religion at all, whether the Vedic sages and the Upanishadic masters, did they want to start a religion? Mahavira did not want to start a religion. Religions evolved over the years in the name of, with the message of a particular sage or a saint or a mystic or whatever, Therefore, Narayana Guru did not want to start a religion, But what is important is that beyond religions, we discover the dynamics of spirituality. I think this is what's important. Jesus would invite us to the spiritual depth. The Upanishadic sages lead us to that spiritual depth of Advaita. Jesus also led us to the oneness with the Father, oneness with the divine. I think deep down, the spiritual realm, we all meet. But at the religious level, we go apart, because that is inevitably so, because we have a mind, we have also the buddhi, but we often ignore the buddhi dimension. We get settled at the mind level. And this is the tragedy in religions. Religions get put up big structures and develop elaborate rituals and dogmas and norms. Then it becomes a huge structure. This is not spirituality. I think that's what I wanted to say. Okay.
Okay, I would like to supplement. Just 1 minute. The question put by Jija Mom. A similar question was put to Narayana Guru directly when he was alive. The person who put the question, his name was Varghese. So a person named Varghese, he asked Narayana Guru, do you have a plan to start a new religion? Guru's reply was that there is already a lot of quarrel between different religions. If I start another religion, the total quarrel will increase. I don't want that. Whichever is the religion, that suffices if it makes a better man. That is Guru's answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father, as well as Dr. Sabu. They were very, 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 very nicely, in a very simple fashion, and gave us such clarity. Thank you very much. Yes, Dilip, please.
Thank you, madam.
Yours.
Yeah. So now I would request our distinguished members and invitees to ask their questions to both Father as well as to Dr. Sabu.
So, Father, this is Kumar Rajapan from US.
Yeah.
So, I liked your idea of, the intellect over mind. That's a good concept. But first of all, I have to say that Narayana Guru did not have any concerns. He was a concerns-free man, neither about religion nor about spirituality. He had compassion and he had a solution for people's, society's concerns. So that is the way I would look at it. And the second thing is, Buddhi in Indian concept is a complicated word, because it is not just a mere introspection. It is an analytical faculty, if you will. And that has aspects like Dhi, which is a spiritual intelligence, that what we see in great masters, spiritual masters. There is Medha involved, and there is Prajna, there is Dhriti, and there is Smriti. Now, if you just look at Medha itself, it is a Buddhi that is guided by divine love. And that is what we see in a Jalaluddin Rumi, in a Narayana Guru, in a Ibn Arabi, people like that, great masters. So I think it is probably a simplistic approach to take Buddhi and just categorize it as a mere introspective faculty. I'm not trying to correct you, but this need to be said. And the other thing is, in West at least, we see, if you ask many young people, what is your religion? Many nowadays tend to say, I don't have a religion, but I am spiritual. So in that respect, spiritual means what is at the core of your being, at the same time, what envelops the entire thing that is out there. In that sense, when in Ishavasya Upanishad, it says, Tadandarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bahyadaha. That is exactly what it is. And I think the young people are trying to get a minimal understanding of that. And that is why they are moving away from the religion and going deep into the spirituality. I would like to hear your thoughts on that last aspect.
I think there is no either or. Either spirituality or religion. I just gave that example. Either thought or language. No, we need both. We have the buddhi and we have the mind also, the manas. So we have to express our ideas. We have to express our ideas, we use a language. Now, is the language my creation? If it is my creation, you will not understand it at all. Language is inherited. Similarly, religion is also inherited. So we need symbols, we need rituals. We have to respect the diversity of religions. At the same time, we have to explore and acknowledge the deep unity in spirituality, which is a dynamic unity. At the mind level, at the religion level, we see a lot of diversity, which is good. I think today we must be able to say diversity is beauty. Diversity is beauty. But diversity becomes beautiful only when we intuit the unity deep down within us. So I think we need spirituality and some expression of religion. Well, I don't have to. I have nothing to say about the impressions of people in the West. Well, that's a different theme altogether. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Dr. Rajapan.
May I just ask one small question also? Um, as a sequel to Kumar Rajapan, he was talking about the West, but what about the religion-less revival of spirituality with many gurus who are able to spread their wings across 125, say Sri Ravi Shankar, Ekam, Oneness Amma Bhagavan, and many other gurus who are who seem to be spreading their message of love and compassion in a wall-less, seamless fashion. What would you talk about that? Do you think that we are going towards a world without religion? Don't you think that these are all small steps towards breaking the walls of religiosity, and ultimately going to that space that you talked about?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
a very important question. What is important is spirituality. What is important is that experience that we are called to a higher consciousness. What's important is a compassion, which all religions speak of, compassion. I think that is the spirituality. Well, this finds expression in diverse forms. So the religion of today may not be the religion of religion perhaps after 100 years. Religions evolve tremendously. Over the centuries, each religion has also made an evolution. So I think on the religious landscape of humanity, there can be reform movements and non-religious movements and an emergence of a secular spirituality It's all possible.
Dr. Alexander is wanting to ask a question. Dr. Alexander.
I have been listening to these talks of boss and father, and I benefited a great deal. Thank you very much, Jija. Though I was traveling, I was able to listen to that. As the takeaway from Father Spring, the difference between religiosity and spirituality, one, and the three Asura Shaktis coming to the sacred landscape of religion. Beautiful expression. And I carry as a takeaway the concept that we are all co-pilgrims. Well, thank you very much for that particular expression. We are all co-pilgrims. I think that itself will lead us to a quality. Thank you very much for this experience of having listened to Jija. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sometimes, my German friends, to them, when I give talks, they say, we may forget your words, but your diagrams will not leave us in peace. So I would like to share these two or three diagrams with you. Look at them and reflect for yourself on the distinction between spirituality and religion. Yeah, that is my gift to this auspicious group for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, madam. First of all, I would like to express our deep sense of gratitude and thanks to our invited speaker, Reverend Father Dr. Painadat. As everybody said, saying in a simple language, especially complicated things, it's very difficult. So Father did it very beautifully. So that shows his depth of knowledge in that area. Thank you so much, Father, for making us this wonderful evening. Then Dr. Sabu is our family member. As sake of formality, we say express thanks to Dr. Sabu. Wonderful. You also made a beautiful angles to the topic which Father brought out. And Dr. J. Alexander, former minister, thank you for your active participation, even though you were traveling. Thank you so much. Really, we are thankful to you, sir. And all our distinguished invitees, members who were present here and actively participated in this evening, thank you so much. So then we have to definitely thank Dr. Jija Madhavan Hari Singh. She's our leader, and because of her, all these things are happening. Then we would also like to say our gratitude and thanks to our internal team, Ms. Jumna, Dr. Pradeep, Mr. Shaj, Anup Haridasan, Mr. Venu Ravindran, KC Haridas, all of you, you work behind the screen. Thank you so much. We'll be meeting next month. Before that, we have Onam across the corner. Then Guru Jayanti also is coming. So my advance wishes on behalf of Madam and the group to everyone. So we will formally close this group. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudashyade Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
I would like to invite all of you to this ashram in Samiksha. It is at Kaladi, graced by the birth of Adi Shankara. It's very close to the junction, but it's a very quiet place, and it is a meeting place of diverse religions. So you are most welcome to our ashram. when you come to this side, please step in. Most welcome.